Hey guys, I am back with another episode of J. Avenue's podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about co-parenting, some of the common issues that may arise, as well as some tips and tricks to help facilitate and foster a more healthier dynamic when it comes to co-parenting. Okay? And let's get started. I'm also going to be looking down at some of my notes. This will help keep it more organized, streamlined, so you guys can follow me and I'm not drifting off too much. I've been trying it the last couple of episodes, so hopefully it's working with not making this too drawn out. As a disclaimer, I want to start off by saying all of the information that I am providing or any of my opinions are merely suggestions, things to consider, and they are free information as well as general information. So it's nothing too specialized. Again, this is not a substitute for any professional services. If you feel like you need additional resources and professional help, please do so. I urge it and support that. Okay, so this does not substitute or supplement any professional help that may be needed. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to go over some of the tips and tricks for both custodial and non-custodial parents, and then we'll split up the two with more specific recommendations. So we're going to start off with both parents. And one of the key things to remember is both parents definitely have to consider the change and the dynamic of the situation for the child. You have a household or a situation where both parents were together and they are no longer together. Therefore, one parent is out of the home and the other one is in the primary home. So understand that the child is dealing with that change. It's a transformation. It's a process, no different from anything else. It is something different that they have to get used to. And it's not going to be easy for them, especially if they're really young or if they're in their teenage phase. So just understand that it's not easy for them, and you do want to check in with the child first to see if there is any additional need, help, explanations needed, that their emotional needs, physical needs, and mental needs are all taken care of. Next, you want to consider that you want to uphold any responsibilities that you guys may have with the child. This is, of course, obvious, but just be accountable. Be accountable in the role that you play in their lives, as well as that other parent. For both parents, you both want to make sure that you are consistent and that you keep your word. For the non-custodial parent, it could look more like, I agree to pick you up and take you out for the weekend. I'm going to uphold that promise and I'm going to keep my word. Not when the time comes, I'm always flaking out or canceling the child. So you want to be careful not to do that. For the custodial parent, you may promise them that they can go out with the non-custodial parent. You want to uphold that agreement as well and hold yourself accountable. So this is for both, okay? Again, make sure that they are safe. Safety is definitely a priority for both parents to ensure. When the child is in your care, no matter whose care the child is in, for that short period of time or consistent period of time, you need to ensure that the child is in a safe environment. This includes physical location. This may include people that you have frequented around the child. You have to be very diligent and pay attention to the surrounding. Pay attention to what the children are saying. If they feel uncomfortable or unsafe in any situation, you have to definitely look into that and investigate those claims, because you just never know. And so safety is a primary concern for both parents to adhere to. This also continues with that you just want to make sure you have their best interest at heart and not have them around everybody and anybody. Again, we've seen countless situations where children were left with one of their parents' significant others and something unfortunate happens. Also with family members and something unfortunate happens. Just practice discernment and good judgment when leaving the children in the care of someone else or around others. You want to make sure anyone around the child is creating a positive experience and a healthy one. What you don't want is to encourage an environment where there is negative talking about either parent. Okay? So that's one thing. What is this? Sorry. Okay. Next, it will be helpful, and this is something that I have seen in my experience, is that if you are dealing with a situation where you are, let's use for example the non-custodial parent, and you have a new significant other, which is fine, there's nothing wrong with that, it will probably be in your best interest for you to first have an introduction between the custodial parent and the child all together, where they're able to meet this new person. This is only my recommendation and suggestion. Again, we're all grown, everyone's adults. You do as you please. I've seen less friction, less issues when you do have transparency amongst each other to say, hey, look, this is somebody that I'm dating, and this is someone who will be consistent in my life and around our child often. So I just want to extend that respect and have you guys meet up and meet each other. You don't have to be friends. We don't have to kumbaya, but it's just to have a proper introduction that, hey, this is my new girlfriend or my new boyfriend, whatever the case may be. And they'll be around more often because either we live together or we're always together. That will show the primary parent or the whichever parent that there's a level of respect, that you respect their opinion, or you just respect the child enough to say, hey, look, I don't want any problems. Prevention is better than cure, as they say. It really saves you a lot of issues down the line. So that's my suggestion. I know it's hard because sometimes when there is a separation, there's a lot of emotions attached to it. Some people might be bitter and they find it hard to get over that person or what they lost, and they are very hurt and still heartbroken. And because of that, they find it hard to take out the ego and come back down to a common ground. Okay, and the whole goal is we want to make co-parenting less stressful and more amicable. Next tip, you need to make good judgment calls. That goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Make good judgment calls because this is your child we are talking about, and that again goes for both parents. The next advice would be, I've already touched on this, but I'm going to say it as clear as day. Do not speak negatively about either parent to the child or in the child's presence. I cannot stress that enough. It is crucial to that child's development as an individual. It is so difficult and awkward, uncomfortable for children to be in environments where someone is consistently speaking bad and ill of their parent. Whether it's mom, whether it's dad, it does not matter. Your goal is to make sure that your child has a healthy has the capability of having mental stability and being overall healthy mentally. That messes with their mind, and it also shows a negative side of that person's character. It shows a negative side of your character if you tend to do that. So do not do it. From personal experience, I always make sure that anytime that I am speaking or giving advice to my son or anything like that, I make sure that what I'm saying is helpful and does not negatively impact or make his father look negative to him. You do not want to rob your child of that opportunity. The same goes for the father. If you are not in the household, you need to ensure that when the child is in your presence, you are not speaking negatively of their mother as a way of trying to have them pick sides. That is extremely dangerous and detrimental. Any professional psychologist, child psychologist will tell you that. Another advice that I have is, again, do not use the child for gossip or information. Now, for some people, this may be difficult because, again, whatever issues they have, they cannot let go. They want to be in control. They want to know. I want to know what your mother's doing. I want to know what this person is doing. Tell me this kind of information. It is not healthy for that child to have that type of behavior in their environment. Children are meant to enjoy their childhood and be children. They're allowed to do that. Do not rob them of that joy. You are robbing them of that by putting them in an adult's place, by having them be a gossip hen. That is not necessary. It is so counterproductive, and it creates a bad habit that will probably be hard for them to break later on. So you have to make sure, again, that you're not doing that. Again, that goes for both parents. Another advice for both parents is to remember, and this is a very important one, your kids are not your therapist. They are not your therapist. They are not your cuddle buddy. They are not your bestie. They should not supplement someone else's role or your own role to yourself. Okay? Your children are not your therapist. What this means, you have a bad day, you feel depressed, you feel stressed, you need attention, and you don't feel like you matter. It is not your child's place to save you or save the day. Which also relates to you partaking in gossip with your children, or talking to your children about adult things, all because you don't have a best friend or you feel lonely. Cut it out. Your children are not your therapist. If you need help, please seek help. If you have any mental condition or mental instability, it's okay. It does not mean that you're defective or anything's wrong with you. It just means that you need someone to talk to. And if you need someone to talk to and you feel like you no longer have that with your social circle, then you go and get a therapist. They will listen to anything you say. That is their job. That is not your children's job. Next. I would say, and this is most so for parents who have older children, maybe from the ages to 10 to 17. We have to recognize that in that stage, there is a transition that is happening. Children that are going from 10 to 17 are transitioning. They are entering the preteen stages, the teenage stages. It is extremely different from when they were 4 years old. The way you relate to a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old is not going to be the same way you relate to a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old. There will be a huge difference in their development. You have to understand that as both parents, specifically the non-custodial parent who is not in the household witnessing the transition day to day. You want, especially if you are inconsistent. Also, if you see your child once every 2 months, once every 4 months, or barely at all, and you do end up connecting with them later on, you have to understand that a transition has taken place. They are not the same little baby that you remember from way back when, okay? There is a difference. And to add to that, I'm going to discuss Erikson's stages of development. He's very popular in psychology, child psychology, and he goes through all the stages and the ages. I'm only going to do an overview of the 2 stages that affect ages 10 through 17. First stage is from ages 6 to 12. 6 to 12 is the industry versus inferiority stage. What that means is that is when the child is learning how to be humble, right? They're learning about life and they're learning how to be humble and also acceptance. So their acceptance of life, their acceptance of themselves, and just being a good kid, like what that means, what that takes. From ages 12 to 19, I believe, yes, 12 to 19, the children is learning identity versus confusion. And this is when the child understands that life is complex. Life has complexities. Everything is not all peaches and cream. You know, there's certain struggles that will come about, and life is not perfect. They learn that life is a complex thing. They also learn to combine previous skills that they've acquired up to this point. So there's a stage where they learn sensory, right? They focus on their senses when they're younger. They also focus on their motor skills, their logical skills, and their aesthetics. So this stage, they're combining all of that information to determine who they are, what they like, what are their preferences. This is when they're creating identity for themselves. So they're coming into their own being. And there's like an independence there as far as what they agree with, what they think, their opinions, which is why you might see a lot of teenagers will fight against their parents, figuratively speaking, fight for their opinion and their right to think for themselves freely. This is that stage. So the way that you connect with a 6-year-old will not be the same way you connect with a 13-year-old. For the 6-year-old, you may be able to tell them what to do, how to think, what to feel, when to laugh, when to smile, when to cry. And they're looking at you for those cues. However, when they are 13 or 17, they're not doing that. They already have this understanding that they know how they feel and they want to express that. And they need you to understand that and have that freedom. So we have to make sure that we are able to support what our children like, activities they may want to do. They are not going to do what you want. We also have to learn how to support who they are as a person. Both parents need to understand that the children of this age range are individuals. They are not carbon copies of yourself. So if you're the kind of person that what you think goes as far as when I'm hungry, my kid has to be hungry too. They can't be hungry unless I'm hungry. This kind of self-centered ego, selfishness, it has no place with older children. It shouldn't have a place with any age, to be honest with you. So you have to learn how to pay attention to what your children need from you. And the most thing they need is parental advice. They need you to be a mentor to them. They need you to encourage them. They need you to instruct them with certain things. Talk to them. Talk to them as though you respect them. So yeah, that was it for both parents. I'm going to go into the custodial parent really briefly because my advice is very streamlined. Because really and truly, when it comes to the custodial parent, the key thing, like I said before, is focus on the child's needs and make sure you are not inserting your own personal vendettas or personal issues. You're not inserting that into the situation. Learn to separate whatever issues you have with the non-custodial parent. Separate that. This is about the child. You're doing what's in the best interest of that child. If your situation permits it, where you're able to have a healthy dialogue and communication structure with the non-custodial parent, please do so. Use that to your advantage, to your best ability. In some cases, you may not be able to foster that healthy communication pattern because sometimes personalities are different. Again, like I said, some people are bitter, so it's hard for some people to move past that and come together to communicate effectively. If this is an issue for you, you may want to figure out which form of communication works the best. I'll give you an example. Not everyone can handle having direct phone conversations or in-person conversations because things may get heated. You may benefit from utilizing text messaging or emailing. This may work wonders for you because once you send a text or an email, your message is all together as one. It comes as a unit. So the individual is not able to interject and interrupt, and you're not able to do the same to them. Everyone is able to say their complete thought, and you wait for the response, and it kind of controls the flow of the conversation. Also, it allows any parent who is not ready to deal with it, like let's say something is sent to you and maybe the person sounds like they're annoyed, frustrated, or have attitude. It allows you to take a moment and come back to it. If it's not an emergency, you can come back to it and respond later. That way you could respond in a more respectful way than your initial attitude would prohibit. So you just want to make sure that you focus on what type of communication works for you. Some people work best when there's a third party. If grandma gets along with the baby mother and you can't get through to her, whatever the case may be, grandma might be a great resource. Let me think if I have anything else to say about that. Again, make sure that if you have a difficult time communicating with the other party, that you minimize the communication if you can. So only reach out if something is very important or an emergency, and you could respect the other person by doing that. not to reach out because of your own personal gains. So we're not reaching out to try and have intimate time with our exes. We're not doing that. Focus on the kid, focus on the child, and you'll be good. You'll be straight. This is not about your personal problems. The child comes first. That's the only time I need to be contacted. You can instill those boundaries for a better relationship. Another thing that you want to do is, if you need to, you can designate meetup locations. So locations to exchange the child that you guys share, because sometimes you may not want that individual at your personal residence for whatever reason. Maybe they've caused issues, it's been difficult to get them to leave, or every time they come there's a fight or a disagreement. Maybe they threaten you. You want to make sure that you protect yourself and the child. So prevention is better than cure. As I said before, if you need to designate another location, make sure it's a public location that has cameras, whether it's a shopping plaza or a certain store or a mall, any place where there's always people available. If you have no other location, you can always do the nearest police department. And that way it forces both parties to kind of be on their best behavior, that there's no funny business going on. It sets the tone that, we're just cut dry exchanging. So that may help those who have that issue. If you have a great dynamic to where you don't have that issue and you can communicate with the other parent, please do so and use it to your advantage. If your communication is okay and could be better, do so to your advantage. If that's the case, most of the time it just means coming to an agreement as to schedules, times. Because one thing I noticed with a lot of cases is that the non-custodial and the custodial parent usually has butt heads and issues with scheduling and parent visits and all that stuff. It all boils down to this understanding. As the non-custodial parent, there is an understanding that, okay, the child primarily is not in my home. The child is in the home with the custodial parent, and they have their own routine. The child has their own schedule. And so you have to have an understanding that it's in the child's best interest that when I'm scheduling to see my child, it correlates with the schedule they already have. You cannot expect the child to operate with your schedule. So if you're mostly available in the middle of the night, let's say I go to sleep in the day and I'm up at night, I need to ensure that I'm picking up the child in a reasonable time. I cannot expect on a school night to pick up the child after midnight, because that involves the safety problem. How are we making sure that the child is safe? There's no reason why a child should be out and about in the middle of the night. That is common sense across the board, especially on a school night. So then there's going to be sacrifices on your part. It doesn't matter, because your child is worth it and you do whatever you need to do to sacrifice that. But it has to be within a reasonable time frame. That goes with the child's schedule. So that has to be understood. Another thing is, and that goes for pickup and drop off. So just have a little more, like, be more reasonable for both parents when you guys are coming to terms. There's no need to be petty and spiteful by saying, well, I'm not going to drop them off until 11:59 p.m. or midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning because that's the only time I could do it. No, you have to be reasonable. Like, there's no reason why you should be waking your child up in the middle of the night and taking them out of their sleep. Like, so that's one thing. Other advice for the non-custodial parent, sorry. Let's go over my list. Is use your time with your kids to bond. This is not your time to focus on other people or go on dates. This is not time for you to be in interviews and doing everything under the sun except for focusing on the child. Your time with your child is precious because you're not the custodial parent, so you barely get to see them. So when you do get to see them, make it count. And there should be some form of bonding, some type of talking, connecting. It's not, oh, let me pick you up just so I could have brownie points that I picked you up and then I ignore you for the rest of the time. That is not the time for that. Also, you should not be picking them up and just dropping them off into someone else's hands just to say you did it. That's another point I wanted to make. Sometimes you'll see them pick up the child and they drop it off with the nanny, or they drop it off with the babysitter, or someone else, or other children that the child doesn't even know and doesn't even like. You can, however, drop the child off with your relatives, right? Your immediate relatives and family members, because then the child can build a bond with them as well. So that's okay. But when I see people drop them off with other people's kids who they don't even know, don't even like, and they don't even pay them any attention, they're off somewhere else doing whatever. So why did you pick up the child if you're not going to connect with them? Children see and they know all. Like, some people do this and think that the children, it doesn't affect them, but it does. The children see how you treat them. Because the children are going to say, oh my God, mom is not paying attention to me. Dad is not paying attention to me. What's going on? And they internalize that. And then it becomes an unpleasant experience. And then they're not going to want to hang out with you. Okay, let's move on. Again, like I said, you want to be their mentor and their cheerleader. You also want to understand, this is a big one. Please understand, if you are a non-custodial parent and you're not consistent and you decide to show up sporadically, periodically, every now and again, please understand that your child does not owe you anything. You owe your child. And I say that because I see oftentimes people will say, well, I don't call my children because they don't call me first. Like, the phone works both ways. You need to call me so I can feel special. Why you don't call me? It's always me calling you. Yes, because you're a child. You're the adult. You're the parent. How does it look that you're telling, let's see here. Sorry. You're telling us 8-year-old or 11-year-old, man, you need to call me. I'm not calling you. You call me. First of all, you're not there because you're inconsistent, and you want the child to chase after you and run behind you. No. You're the parent. You have the responsibility of being in your child's life. You make the phone calls. No one's saying that they won't call you every now and again, but that's going to take time. They have to first see you often and know you to do that. But if I don't see you or hear from you, how you want me now to call you? And you want me to call you first? No. Understand that they are your children. They are not strangers in the street. They are not your homeboy on the, or whatever. They're not your little girlfriend. They are your children. So they have a priority, and they have that right that you pursue them. They're your children. They do not owe you anything. And that goes for consistent and non-consistent parents. Also, don't punish them with the silent treatment. If you are usually this happens with inconsistent parents, but if you are inconsistent or consistent, if you are non-custodial, it is in your best interest not to practice silent treatment with your children. Again, they're not your little friends, they're your children. And the last thing they need is to see the adult figure in their life acting childish by doing silent treatment, all because they didn't get what they wanted. What could possibly be reason enough for silent treatment towards your children? This includes not calling them for months, ignoring their text messages. There's no reasoning for that. As the adult, they look up to you. You show them through example. You lead by example. If you're getting all in your feelings and you're taking it out on them and projecting that negative energy onto them, then what does that say about you? And I'm not saying you have to be a perfect person, but any personal issues that you have, any problems with handling your emotions, you should work towards fixing that in your own time. Not practicing or taking it out on your children. So if you were in your feelings and let's say they didn't respond how you wanted. Let's say you sent them a text or a message and they didn't respond how you wanted, to then say, well, you know what? I'm mad because you didn't laugh, or I'm mad that you didn't respond how I wanted you to respond. So I'm not going to talk to you. And I'm going to ignore you for months. That's definitely not healthy. So we have to do a self-check with ourselves when we are dealing with our children. I already said that their needs come first, so that's something you already know. Also, try not to only reach out to your children and use them as pick-me-ups. I see that sometimes where people will only reach out to their children only when they feel lonely, only when they feel depressed, only when they want to boast and brag about how much money they got and their level up, that they're living the life. And it's funny because sometimes the non-custodial parent will reach out to brag. Oh yeah, I want to let you know, I'm doing good. Look how I'm living. I got these new shoes. I got this new watch. You see my watch? Or I got this new handbag. Or, you like my nails? I like my nails too. And this parent who is doing this may not be contributing financially to the child's life. May never be the type to say, here's $20. Go get yourself something. My philosophy is like, if you are balling that well, spread the wealth with your children. Why not? Why are you not sharing that wealth with your children? I just thought that was funny. And understand that your children, this is another point, understand that your children, they are growing consistently. So they're going to always need shoes. They're going to always need clothes. They're going to need updated wardrobes throughout their life. And so if you don't have that much allotted time with them, when you do see them, it may be in your best interest to buy them a pair of shoes when they're in your care. What's the harm in that? Buy them an outfit while they stay with you for the weekend, or a few outfits. If you're able to, definitely do it. There is no harm with that, whether you pay child support or not, especially if you don't. Take care of them. They're your children. You should be loving on them and providing for them when they're in your care. Not taking advantage of the fact that, oh, well, I don't do it, so I don't have to do it. So I think that's important to mention. Also, again, don't pick them up just to ignore them later. This also includes electronics. Maybe it may be in your best interest. This is just a suggestion that when you do spend time with your children, you have a downtime for electronics where we put away our phones and we just connect, especially if they're older. It's very important that you establish that connection and that bond. Next point, which relates to that, is you also want to establish a sense of trust with your children, especially if they're older. Because of the fact that you're, as a non-custodial parent, that you're not in the household, there has been some form of disconnect, whether it's a huge one or a minor one. So again, you want to recognize the dynamic and fix it. Rebuild this trusting relationship with your children. Allow them to be transparent with you. Allow them to come to you and talk to you about their issues and tell you what they need from you, what they need help with. That is what you take advantage of that, because you already have an advantage of the fact that you're not in the household. And the advantage to that is that you're probably not the primary disciplinarian. So you got it made. You could literally be the good parent, per se. That you could be the one that just gives them this sense of positivity. And because you already know that maybe in the household they're already being disciplined and instructed. Now you can follow that by being encouraging and positive. Why would you not take advantage of that? So definitely use that to your advantage. It's even better if you find a way to do both. Helping out the person in the household, provide discipline, or at least backing them up so you guys can be a solid front as parents to help your child be the best version of themselves. But they're not going to be the best versions if you continue to ignore them and be petty towards them. Any kind of negativity that you breed, it kind of sets them back. So we got to be careful what we're instilling in our children as both parents. Primarily the non-custodial parent, because whether or not you know it or not, your role is very crucial. You're very important to the child's progress. So, which is why your consistency matters, which is why you taking ownership of your responsibilities to that child matters, which is why the connection you create matters. I don't think a lot of parents as a whole realize how you deal with your children, how you connect with them and relate to them is written all over their sense of self-esteem. there has to be a very healthy balance and understanding. They're individuals, like I said before, so you want to bring light to that, acknowledge that, let them know you see that. You still are going to instruct them, you still are going to parent them and tell them the right way of what you think, and certain bad behaviors you're going to try and stop and prevent by educating them, explaining to them, especially when they're at the older ages, what's the harm in that? If it would save them, if it would save their self-esteem, why not? A lot of children are depressed and they have mental health issues, all stemming from a low sense of self-esteem, a lack of confidence. Also, combined with the fact that when they do go to school or they're in their social settings, they're criticized, bullied, and then they go home and they're bullied again by their own parents. Because mom and dad don't understand that I'm an individual. They don't understand what I deal with. I don't have a trusting relationship with either of them, so I'm not able to even come to them to ask them for help. And we only can combat that by providing that safe space for our children. We focus so much on making a safe space for our boyfriends and girlfriends and whoever, wives and husbands. You should be that safe space for your children. Absolutely. I want my son to tell me everything. Even the stuff I don't want to hear. Even the stuff that I'm afraid to hear. That he will deal with or faces. I want to hear it all. And it's going to require that sometimes I'm going to have to keep my mouth shut sometimes and just listen. I know that's hard for some parents to understand, but not everything your child tells you is cause for outrage. Sometimes they'll tell you things that are difficult to hear, that are uncomfortable, especially when dealing with mental health, and you're just going to have to sit and listen. And sometimes they may blame you, and you have to sit and listen. It doesn't mean that you have lost your standing as the parent. I'm the parent, you're the child. You can't tell me that I've made you feel bad or I've hurt you. No. They're human beings too. So yes, some things that you may say to them that is not your intent to hurt them does hurt them. And it's okay for them to tell you, Mom, Dad, when you said this the other day to me, it hurt me pretty bad. I didn't really like it. And I can't understand why you would say that. And we can't be too busy doing whatever else. We can't be too busy adulting that we don't have time for our kids to listen to them. Especially if you're a non-custodial parent too. Make time. That's where you could be a very big asset, because you're not already dealing with the day-to-day responsibilities that matter for letting this child live day-to-day. You're not dealing with the stresses of raising the child day-to-day, right? Because you're not in the household, the primary household. So be of more use by being that ear, that listening ear for your children. That will make a world of a difference. They just want to know that they matter and that you care. So that's another way you can help. Also realize not only does their wardrobe need to be updated, but their appetites change. Duh. Especially past the age of 10, 11. That's when you see the surge in the appetite, the biggest change to me, because you can't just satisfy a a 13 or 14-year-old with a Happy Meal and some small fries. Like, that's not going to work. They'll swallow that whole and they'll still want more. Their appetites are extremely big. So what you would feed a 4-year-old is not going to be the same thing you could feed a 14-year-old. Can't just give them an apple and think that, okay, he's good. No. So some people call that starvation. So just understand, especially if you're not consistent and you do not contribute financially, you want to make sure that if they are in your care, whether it's a day or 2 days or a few hours, and understand that their appetites change. I know it's silly to say, but some people need to be reminded of that. You also need to know that it is extremely difficult financially for one person to take on the brunt of the responsibilities. Not only their appetite changes, but their feet grow at an exponential rate. They need shoes all the time. Every 2 months, their feet get bigger. So understand that the custodial parent or the primary parent who is financially taking care of them does need assistance and help. And it's not fair that either of the parent is not contributing in some way or form. So, I think that's basically it. I think I've given you guys enough tips, tricks, things to remember. Again, I can't stress enough how important it is to try to speak positively about the other parent or not at all. It usually works, but you do not want to speak negatively. Sometimes it may be hard. You may have so much to say. You have to hold it back and restrict yourself. I make it a very, very crucial point that even times if my son will come to me and say whatever he wants to say about his dad, I have to make sure, and I always make sure that I'm understanding that I have to be unbiased and I have to be fair. What is in the best interest of my son? The best interest is consistent and constant contact with his father, right? And I can never, and I will never keep that away from him. He always has the choice. He always has the option. I don't even insert myself into their relationship. They have their own relationship that they deal with. I'm merely just a source of transportation. Like, he'll come to me and say, okay, I'm going here on Saturday or whatever. Okay, cool. What time? Because if I'm not available, I have to find somebody to drop him off. And that is how I take it. But I can never see myself keeping my son away from his father unless he absolutely tells me I don't want to go. And I don't no longer want to go. I'm not comfortable. No. He's of an age where he is developing his own sense of self, the environment that he wants to be around. So I will not take that away from him either. It's what's in the best interest of the child. So that's something that I always do. So I have to check myself and make sure that I'm doing what's in his best interest. And it is best for me not even to insert myself unless needed. So that's how I deal with my situation. Other than that, I always point out good qualities about his father, good things that he can use and capitalize, as far as a couple of things personality-wise that are great. it's good for them to see their parents in a good light. So that is my takeaway from that, my advice to you. I hope this helps someone or many people, but we need to definitely do better with co-parenting dynamics in the household. The children are the primary focus, and it's never too late for you to have a great relationship with your children. It's never too late to reach out to them and try to begin to have a relationship with them. I don't care how many years have passed. You're the adult. Lead by example. The worst thing that could happen, okay, you might get rejected. Okay, it's part of life. You're an adult. You have been rejected before. But what's more important? Your own personal feelings, being in your feelings and not being able to handle rejection, or that your child is missing out on your presence. That could be negatively affecting their self-esteem. And trust me, that's a difficult road. It's a difficult road. It's not easy. And it's not fair to the children. So trust me when I say you do not want to do that. And I'll definitely talk to you guys in another episode about ways to handle that situation and that dynamic. But until next time, I just want to say Happy Father's Day to all the present and consistent fathers out there. You matter. I will always give you your credit, and I will always give you your flowers, because I think it's amazing. Yes, it's your job, but to take that on amongst many who maybe don't take it on is definitely admirable. And to do so amongst the stigma where you're being painted as a horrible person is also admirable, because you show up anyway. Even when the world doesn't give you credit, even when the world doesn't give you your trophies, even when the world uses Father's Day and you barely get any gifts, or you get socks in comparison to the Mother's Day gifts, it's admirable that you are doing the damn thing. Continue to be great fathers. Continue to be consistent and present in your children's lives. Again, it is all about consistency. It has to be a daily thing, a weekly thing. It needs to be consistent. And we are proud of you. We celebrate you this month and this week also. So happy early Father's Day to all the present and consistent fathers. Love you. Take care.